We don't determine that, as is the amount the city contributes, which is different for every different group of employees. The city itself has people in multiple categories. The elected officials are in one, senior management is another, general employees is one, public safety is another. I mean, we have multiple different classes, and the contribution rate from the city is different for every single one of those groups. And that is determined by a way that, in my 20 years of dealing with this stuff, I've yet to figure out how they come up with it. They will tell you that it's done based on an actuarial study, but if that was the case, it wouldn't be different for all of the different groups. So it's ultimately during the state's budget process, they issue the rates and we pay them.
I mean, in the time that I've been here, the city has contributed close to $40,000, and I have 12,000. So just making that known. The other little tidbit that I have, I don't know if you know that, because we keep getting hit about other areas around us, other cities around us being lower millage and stuff. Venice just added their districts such as the fire. So their millage is 4.360 this year. They were 3.7 last year. And we this year will be 3.7667. So we kind of did a.
Yes, ma'am. It's tough to compare just a millage rate of any two municipalities without looking at the bigger picture. One of the things Venice is in the process of taking over as well. Again, keep in mind, they are a very different community than we are. In many ways. One of the things that Venice is in the process of taking over from the county is their EMS services. We already have that, and that is included and paid for out of the general fund, which is funded by the millage rate. They have, prior to this transition that they're working on, and I'm not positive they've even finalized it yet, that when they take that over, prior to them taking it over, they're paying the county for their EMS services. So they wouldn't have that included in their city millage, it would go to the county. Whereas, like I said, it's included in ours. That's why when our finance director, Ms. Farrell, does her comparisons that she shows you every year during this budget process, she looks for similar cities, and they're not necessarily neighboring cities, and there's a reason for that. It's cities that they're similar in a variety of categories, as well as providing similar services. So that's why I strongly make the statement that it's tough to say Venice's millage is this and ours is that, because they're very different communities. You have to make sure you're comparing apples to apples as close as you can.
It makes me very proud, because if I remember, they're under 20 square miles or so, and here we are 105. And when they took on the services that we already have, they ended up higher than us. So
Yes,
it
ma'am.
makes me feel proud to be this large and be able to.
I agree. Contrary to some statements you hear at times, we are a very fiscally conservative city. We provide a decent amount of services, and our rates, as evidenced by this budget right in front of you, you've managed to accomplish a lot and yet lower the tax rate again this year. Now, it's gone up at times. At times, it's going to have to. Possible. This commission has done a really good job of working to keep the rate as low as possible. And you accomplish that again this year.
I'm done.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? I just have two. Well, actually three, because Vice Mayor prompted one. What is our effective millage rate if we were to keep the 3.7667 that we discussed at the September 3rd meeting?
We have not calculated that. Unfortunately, it takes some calculating to do, and we would come knowing that you would want that. I apologize.
That's fine.
We can get that out to you all, but I can't get it for you right now.
Her comments prompted it, so yeah, maybe if you could, whatever. If you recall, on September 3rd, there was discussion that started regarding the Tropicare sidewalk. The discussion was started about possibly extending it for the whole length of it from Van Camp to Toledo Blade, shortening it up from the proposed phase 1 and then doing phase 2 possibly next year. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because we have a CIP project, and if we are looking at changing that, I have to wonder, where are we in the procurement of hiring a contractor for that project?
I believe that, and Ms. Julie can come down and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's a project that's budgeted for next fiscal year, which means we wouldn't have started the procurement process yet, because until it's budgeted, we can't start the procurement process.
Okay,
So
so,
we wouldn't have started it.
so we have not. That's
No.
great news. Okay, because I would hate to have a scope and
They- if-
then possibly change it. So that's why,
They may have internally started working on a scope, but they wouldn't have issued anything out to the public yet, because until the budget's adopted, we don't issue those.
so where are we internally on this? I mean, if this gets approved tonight, when do you expect it to go to procurement and then put out to bid for contractors?
I would say by the end of the year, first part of next year,
Calendar.
calendar.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I put that in
Thank
there.
you, thank you.
The mere looks on those faces.
Calendar.
I'm expecting Commissioner Emmerich to say 2020, 2021.
So without having numbers in front of us, without having a larger discussion, is it feasible, based on what we have already budgeted, to do an 8-foot multimodal from Ponce to Toledo as a, even though it's a phased project right now? If we were to shorten that to the 5-foot asphalt sidewalk, would we be able to get that all done at one time? Because like Vice Mayor alluded to at first reading, there may not be funds at all. And then you're paying more money to what's the phrase where you bring them all back, the crews all back to start again, as opposed to
Remobilize.
Thank you,
Yeah.
remobilize them. So I just am wondering if we need to have a larger discussion before you actually put scope out to see if we can do this project in its entirety this fiscal year with the funding we have.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. Of course, we've already hired a consultant, and he has the plans, of course, and the scope already prepared. It's actually pretty much ready to go to procurement for processing for a contractor to construct it. That being said, at our last meeting, the commission asked us to look into how much it would cost for the sidewalk on the one stretch and changing from asphalt to concrete. So tonight, if you would request us to make another, to look at it again and recalculate, we can do that. And then we can determine whether or not we would have enough funding for this year to construct it. I'm assuming you want to go all the way from Toledo Blade to Tropicare or Van Camp? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So Van Camp all the way to Toledo Blade. And you want it with the 5-foot?
I would just be curious what those numbers look like, because in the CIP project, it says that the only sidewalk, which is concrete,
Right.
based on the definition, is from Ponce to Van Camp. From Ponce to Toledo Blade is projected to be this 8-foot wide asphalt path.
Yes,
I'm not
ma'am.
gonna call it
That is
sidewalk.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I'm wondering is, would it be more responsible to do it as a 5-foot asphalt, the entire length, as opposed, and at one time, instead of remobilizing and taking a chance we don't have funding for phase 2, because the whole plan was phase 2 would start the next fiscal year while they're still finishing up the resurfacing and phase 1.
A couple things. The first thing we want to do and that we need to do is we need to reconstruct Tropicare Boulevard. That's number one.
You're
So
saying resurface?
in some places, we're going to reconstruct the base.
Right.
Right, so that project we need to do.
Well, that's part of phase 1.
Yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
correct. Sure. But as far as the multi-use trail and the concrete sidewalk, and I'll let Jerry speak to this, as far as combining projects and all that, you're talking about in the field, doing both of them in one fiscal year? You're talking about completing the reconstruction and repaving the Tropicare Boulevard, and then, doesn't matter what we do, whether it's sidewalk, concrete, asphalt, multi-use trail, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that will be done after we complete that reconstruction. We're not gonna have that going on when we're trying to get that road reconstruction, because there's a lot of base repairs, there's pipe work, it's very, very busy.
Excuse me, Miss Julie, I'm sorry. But the CIP project for the resurfacing was resurfacing entire Tropicare, fixing base and fixing drainage.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what that
Right.
resurfacing CIP project was.
Right.
So all of that's going to be done. What I'm talking about solely is the sidewalk path multimodal, which does not include resurfacing, does not
No,
include drainage.
No, I understand, Mayor, but what I'm trying to point out is if you're asking, can we do it all in one fiscal year, meaning the upcoming one, do the sidewalk from Toledo Blade to Van Camp, I think you were asking, would it be more feasible, and that way we could get it done with the money, we'll see how much it costs.
Making it
Right,
less wide.
Right. But my point was, if we're gonna do that, we just have to make sure that and that's where I'll need Jerry to help me out here. We'll have to make sure that we can first get Tropicare Boulevard, our work on the reconstruction project, that'll have to be completely done. And you're absolutely right, we'll have the crews mobilized. Depending how we bid it and all that, maybe we can bid the two projects together. My point is, to get all that done in one fiscal year, plus construct your sidewalk, which is part of the multi-use trail project, I'm gonna have to defer to Mr. Traverso to see if that could be accomplished in the same fiscal year and still both get done.
And just so to make myself try to make myself clear.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to have the road resurfaced and the sidewalk all done in 1 year. No, I'm looking at the funding that we have available.
Yes, ma'am.
Currently for the sidewalk, the almost $2 million for
Right.
just a small leg. If we can revise that to have it the entire length for the sidewalk financed using this money. Not necessarily to have the construction completed in one fiscal year, but to have the funding available, because I don't think there's going to be funding next year.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And I was just concerned, and that's where I'll ask Mr. Traverso, because if we're gonna be awarded the funding to spend it in '21, we have to do our best to get as much work done on whatever projects.
I
So if it's,
understand.
yeah, I wanna see if we can get, before we answer, we can realistically expect a contractor to accomplish all that work.
So it
1 year.
sounds to me, and I haven't reached out to my fellow commissioners, but it sounds to me like we have time to really look at these numbers, given the constraints that our budget and revenues have. They've already been lowered considerably for fiscal year 20/21. They may come in even lower as this thing progresses. We lost $2.5 million in fiscal year 19/20. Maybe we can have a bigger conversation before we go to final scope and out on the street.
What would happen is, and here again, you correct me if I'm wrong, we currently have a scope, so the commission's asked us to look at some alternatives. So if we looked, it doesn't matter which alternative we look at, we would still come back and we would revise that scope, and we would present you with the new scope, whatever that may be, get commission approval on that, then we would ask for an award of contract. Most likely, we might be able to even do them at the same commission meeting, then proceed and hire our contractors. And to make it go smooth, take advantage of all your mobility fee or mobilization fees and all that, is try to get the two projects bid together and try to maybe get a contractor to do both of them.
Yeah, because
That will help save a lot of money, especially in the mobilization.
absolutely. Because I know when we had made the final decision to break this up into two phases, that was before we found out about the state revenue shortfalls.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was grateful that Vice Mayor brought it up 2 weeks ago, kind of got lost in the shuffle, and I wanted to bring it up, and I'll yield the floor and see if maybe we can get a consensus based on other commissioners' comments and questions on this.
If I may, I'd just like to mention one other component, and this is because they're another agency, but we have an excellent working relationship with them. We're working very closely with them throughout the whole city. and that's the installation of the dark fiber with Frontier. We would work that in as a third component, but we do what we got to do in the
Right.
field.
And my understanding is there's some money in that regard too for this project, because Frontier is doing some of that dark fiber already at their expense, saving us some expense. So-
Yes, ma'am, you are correct.
So
Yes, ma'am.
maybe that will help with getting this project done
Yes, ma'am.
completely.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Carrasone, did you have any questions on this particular item before? Go ahead.
Real quickly, I thought that we had kind of beat this one to death a while ago. The re-engineering costs were going to be quite a bit. And on top of that, we talked about adding, if I remember correctly, I just wrote it down somewhere, that we were going to do Van Camp to Ponce, the sidewalk.
Correct.
Ponce to Sumter, the asphalt multi-use path, which is in conjunction with MPO, which would allow us to possibly receive some grants due to the multi-use. Thought that it had to do with the,
For the record, Jerry Traverso, Engineering Division Manager. If we do, like what we agree for phase one, you're correct. It was
Right.
the sidewalk from Van Camp to Ponds, and from Ponds to Sumter, it was the design-approved 8-foot multi-use trail. And then we can put an application for MPO to fund the, what we call phase two, which will be Sumter to Toledo,
thank you.
under their multimodal projects.
But if we do a 5-foot sidewalk, that
won't.
will not be the
Then,
case.
then
No,
the
no,
sidewalk is,
We wouldn't qualify.
and just for clarification, if we go 5 foot, according to our ULDC,
gotta
it
be
has to
6.
be concrete. It cannot be asphalt, so it should be concrete per our ULDC. So that's when I was asked about the cost, I had, we're working on that, and when you go from asphalt to concrete, that it's sometimes, especially in this long projects, it's a washout at the end in constructability and material costs.
And so if we get to that phase two portion, which was supposed to be Sumter to Toledo, we reduce that to the 5-foot sidewalk, which now we know has to be concrete. That's going to be about 2 years away, I would assume, right? The cost of that is going to be more than estimated, no matter which way you look at it, correct?
For that, we will have to pay the consultant that designed, and the sign has been approved, SWIFT permit, the whole 9 yards, is ready to go. You will have to go, take a step back, redesign for the width, the materials, and then the permitting shouldn't be a big issue. It will be a permit review for the one that it was approved. But then the plans will have to be changed because all the cross sections, the materials, the takeoff, everything has to be redone. So there will be a cost associated to updating the plans that will have to be added to what the change from asphalt to concrete will be.
So what we had discussed the last time is that the cost would essentially be a wash by the time you added all the additional work that has already taken place. Taking it from a asphalt path to a 5-foot concrete sidewalk
Correct.
is a big difference in cost. And so I thought that we had all this kind of settled. So I'm not sure, we didn't give any direction for anything,
Well,
correct?
Commissioner Carrasone, the direction was for Mr. Traverso to recalculate to see what the costs would be for the sidewalk.
Comparison.
And in comparison, because the goal was, because of the potential possibility that there would not be funding the following year, is to try to see if we couldn't fund it all this year, this upcoming year of '21.
Okay.
That was the
I
goal.
don't remember what our vote was, so I was not sure
Okay,
that that was the direction given by the commission.
yes, ma'am, that was the
Okay.
direction, yes, ma'am.
All right, so,
So by the 22nd, Mr. Traverso, we have to have a memo into the city manager with that information.
by
was the-
October
No,
22nd?
September 22nd. That was the
22nd,
commission's
okay.
directive,
Well,
yes,
that's
ma'am.
good, okay. So by September 22nd,
We
we
have
should
to give the numbers.
essentially get the information that Commissioner McDowell and Commissioner Luke are looking for.
Yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
correct. That was the deadline.
Okay, and in there will be all those additional costs, you know,
Redesign.
allocated with it,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
correct.
all right. And then my final question is the loss of revenue by sales tax, I believe is what it is, city manager. That's the predominant amount of loss. That is projected loss, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we do not know for sure if those numbers are accurate, true, or correct. They're
Correct.
just
They-
based on economists.
We get what's actually collected. They give us an estimate of what they think that we should budget, and that's what we budget. And
Okay.
They being the state.
All right. Very much. That's it.
Vice Mayor, did your questions pertain to this particular topic of Tropicare?
It did.
Go ahead, please.
I was just curious about the conduit part, because the Frontier, they had received the federal funds or whatever to put in some conduit for fiber, or maybe even fiber itself.
Yes.
What side of the road were we going to be putting it down on, and which side is Frontier going to be putting it on?
Well, Frontier, the way that we design the plans, we call it the dark fiber, and it's, like I would been explaining, it's just the conduit and the pull boxes. It's an empty pipe.
Right.
The
But
sidewalk
when we were
side or the
designing it, we were designing it on the north side. And then Frontier, when they submitted for the permit, they're gonna go on the south side.
South side.
And they did the explanation, because they're the expert, and when we did the design, I basically went to
So
my
the
good old
south
friend
side is
Google
where the
and
path
looked at
was going to
information.
be, right?
I'm sorry?
The south side is where the path was going to be, right?
Yes, the path is gonna go on the south side closer to the right of way. The Frontier conduit is gonna be about 4 foot from the edge of the road. So it's gonna be literally closer to the road, separated by the ditch that is running along Tropicare.
So it doesn't get in the way of the path?
No,
The path can go right over the top of it.
yes.
You look like you have a
Yeah,
question.
that doesn't make sense.
Hang on. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
With Frontier having filed for bankruptcy, I don't know which chapter they filed for, whether it's restructure or whatever. We have a certain amount put in the budget for this because that's what we were going to do. What happens if they get so far with their project, their monies runs out? And, I mean, are we prepared to go in and finish their job
Well,
on the south side?
what they're proposing is I hate to say it, but it's the whole enchilada again. is the pipe, the conduit, and the actual cable with the service, with the internet. What we were proposing was just the cable, the conduit and the pull boxes, because we're not in the business of providers. So they're bringing the whole thing.
The whole enchilada.
Yes.
Also, is the cable going down the side roads and the connection coming from the other side of 75 so that service can actually
Correct.
be out there?
Yes. It's the whole
I like
service that
that.
they can connect people actually to the internet service.
I like that enchilada.
Me too, especially now.
Hot sauce.
Hungry.
All right, that's all I had on that
Thank
one.
you, Commissioner Rich. Did you have a question about Tropicare?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Julie, hang on, we got another one for you.
Door, please. When we went with the concrete section going from Ponce de Leon down to Van Camp.
Thank you.
Was there a reason that we had to do concrete because of the width of the path or anything? Or we just decided to do a concrete sidewalk rather than continuing the path down there? And the reason I'm asking this is if we know that concrete is more expensive to put down, why wouldn't we just keep the same path going all the way down if the costs are gonna be about the same? So when you guys are looking at those numbers, can you come back with that to where that section could be asphalt? Because that could save some money in the big picture as well, and keeping it consistent all the way down through.
Are you talking about a 6-foot wide sidewalk?
No, the same path.
The same path, make it 6 feet?
Yeah, from Ponce all the way to Van Camp. So basically, it's to do the whole thing in.
From Sumter to Van Camp, same thing.
Okay, yeah, we can add that.
I was just curious what the pricing would be, because if it's close, why would we mess it up with two different links? You know, just keep it,
Materials. Mhm.
yeah, keep
Materials.
it consistent all the way through. And it may be cheaper in the long run. I just wanted to know what those costs would be.
Okay, we can add that to the memo.
All
for
right,
the
thank you.
22nd.
That's all I had.
Okay.
I have one follow-up question. You said September 22nd, we're going to have a discussion about this.
No, ma'am, that was the
Tropicare?
deadline for the memo,
For the memo.
for my department to have the memo submitted to the city manager. That's
Okay.
what- Yeah, commission asked for the memorandum to be submitted to the city manager by September 22nd.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember seeing this on the agenda, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any question about Tropicare before I move on to my
Sorry.
next
I
question?
thought I did.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Yeah, just
Carrison.
real quick, the conduit is already being run, or not the conduit, the lines, big orange lines.
The conduit, the pull boxes, and the dark fiber is all at this point in time going to be done by Frontier.
Okay.
The actual fiber
The
optic
Fiber
actual
cable.
optic cable.
lines.
Correct.
Right now are being pulled.
Yes.
All over the
Yes.
place
That
in
is
the
correct.
estates area.
Yes,
They went
ma'am.
up, they went up
That is correct.
Biscayne, they're going up,
Right.
That's
And
correct.
so
Salford. Mhm.
they are on the southern side of the road, right?
Correct.
And they're actually on the northern side of the road in intersections like Reisterstown, Biscayne, and
Salford.
and Sumter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because there's no intersection.
Salford.
Salford, thank you.
Yes.
So they're running those cables on the other side, in
Go
the
to the
intersection
neighborhoods?
That's the
areas.
laterals
To go
to
to
go
the- yeah.
into the
To
neighborhood.
get
the
into the
neighborhoods.
neighborhoods.
Correct.
But I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to clarify that they've already begun their work.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and,
yes, ma'am.
and so while most of their stuff is being run on the southern side, I don't want people to leave here thinking that the
That they're not doing
northern
anything
side
across
aren't
the
doing,
other
right,
neighborhoods.
exactly. I want
Everybody's
them to
gonna
know
do-
that
yes,
they
yes.
too,
Mhm.
I mean, not that they can't tell, there's big orange cables up looping around in those
Right.
areas. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I just wanted to be clear that there's already movement
Oh, absolutely.
and they're waiting for us to help with that movement, from what I understand. But
We work very closely, our department, with them, and our goal right now is as quickly as we can to get them to start installing it on Tropicare.
and the other thing that I wanted to make sure of, the reason why I said that is because there is no ditches on the southern side, none. They're all on the northern side,
The
and
deeper
that's one of
ones.
the
The
bigger
deeper
problems.
ones, yeah. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Okay.
So my last question is, as this budget is being presented, and there's been so much changes in the budget between June and July, and then August, and even on our September 3rd meeting, I need to see if there's anything in this budget that is related to neighborhood development services, that department. And I think I'm done with you. In regarding to the reorganization, and I don't know if that is would include any changes in salaries, any changes in remodeling of the city hall, changes in positions, any other expenses. Is there anything in this budget that is related to the reorganization
my
that we had
knowledge.
talked about in June? I think it was June 16th.
I'll ask any staff who wants to come up to correct me, since I wasn't here for what was completely removed. My understanding was that the direction by the commission in either July or August was to eliminate the funding for the director position, leave the position in there, but eliminate the funding. And there were no other costs in there in the first place. So that would have been the only thing.
Because I know that in June, the plan was to have a new director in place by October 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that we gave a direction to remove that money and remove the funding, but keep the position, nothing to fund it. But I need assurances that that is not anywhere in this budget, in this plan, or anything to do with third floor or neighborhood development services splitting up.
That is correct. It's not, it's been removed.
Thank you for that assurances.
You have a public comment, but I think he might want fire. If that's
I'll double
the-
check.
that's the
Mr. Scott,
ordinance.
on your public comment card, you have ordinance number 2020-32, but then you wrote fire after it. Are you wanting to
No,
talk about?
I wrote fire.
Oh, you wrote that?
Yeah, did you want to speak in fire or general? Because 32 is the fire. 30 and 31 are for this meeting.
The general fund.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So we'll just take off the ordinance number and I'll call you up for comment for the general fund and approval of the budget and millage, okay? All right. Does anybody else have any questions regarding the millage rate or the budget or CIP projects that we have in front of us with ordinance number 2020-30 and 2020-31?
No.
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take public comment then.
That-
All right, Mr. Scott, then you're up.
Jeffrey Scott, Twinkle Avenue, homeowner. Despite the tax burden that Northport taxpayers are made to bear, we have little or no say in how our local government functions or how our taxpayer dollars are spent. We do, however, pay through the nose when it comes to the current tax and spend local government bureaucracy. Our city commission spends taxpayer dollars irresponsibly with little thought for the plight of the Northport taxpayer. This has further mired our city into what I call a quagmire, a sweltering bog of corruption where self-serving agendas rule the day. Unless the taxpayers of the city make a concerted effort to reject the sorry excuse for representative government all of us have been saddled with since 2017, the situation we currently find ourselves in will never improve unless we dissolve the city and start over. The situation we currently find ourselves in will that just may be our solution as the phrase independence and budgetary freedom takes on a whole new meaning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Bruni, I'm not too sure what exactly, do you want to speak during the general fund, or do you want to speak at the very end for general public comment? At the end, thank you. Just want to make sure. City Clerk, do we have any public comment for the ordinance number 2020-30 or 2020-31?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Seeing no more public comment, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-30 as presented.
Motion on the floor to approve ordinance number 2020-30. That was made by Vice Mayor and seconded by Commissioner Carasone. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am. Just thank you to staff for all that you've done to work through this.
Anything to that, Commissioner Carasone? Nope. All right, we'll go ahead and take the vote then. Oh, sorry. Before I vote, can I ask one quick question, just for clarity? I just want to make sure the millage rate is going to be 3.7667, because as presented, there's been so many that have been presented. This is what's in the ordinance. I just want to make sure for clarity. I see heads bobbling. I need a yes
I
on the
was just
record or
trying to look at
no?
the ordinance itself. The answer to that is yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that passed 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to ordinance number 2020-31. Can I get a motion to approve that budget
I move to
and
approve
CIP
ordinance.
projects?
And what?
And the CIP projects.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-31 as presented.
Motion on the floor to approve 2020-31 by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Carrison?
No, ma'am.
We'll go ahead and take the vote. And that passed 5-0. Now we will move on to resolution number 2020R16. City Clerk, could you please read that by title only?
Resolution number 2020-R-26, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, repealing resolution number 2018-R-13, adopting a fund balance policy, incorporating recitals, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Alrighty, so now we will move on to, I believe this is City Attorney or City Manager? Go ahead, City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, a few years back, we changed the fund balance policy to have the 20% for reserve for emergencies, and we added an additional rate budget stabilization and economic uncertainty reserve, which at the time was set at a range of not less than 5 and not more than 10%. As you know, last year we ran into a little bit of challenge with that when we were doing the budget, and we continue to have that challenge, and there was been multiple discussions of changing that, eliminating the minimum, but leaving the up to 10%. The Commission gave direction in July budget workshops by a consensus vote to bring back this ordinance that we have brought to you. And an additional change has been requested to be in there that if there is an excess of the 10% in that second portion, it is authorized if the commission by majority vote approves that. Bless you, whoever that was.
Could you say that last part again? I listened to
bless you,
you.
whoever's-
I was
Bless you, whoever that was.
10%, if it's over 10%.
So if for some reason we get to the end of the year and it's not 10%, but it's 11%, under the current fund balance policy, we have specific things that we have to do. We don't have the ability to basically leave it there. We would have to spend it or have a plan to spend it down. If the commission wanted, for example, to save for a future project or to put money aside, they had a good reason to be above the 10. The majority of the commission could approve that without changing the resolution again.
Couldn't it also be given back to the people?
That's always the option. But right now, what's not an option is for the commission by majority to vote to not do that. So this gives you just another option. It's not something that, could be done by staff. It would have to be a majority commission vote.
Are you saying you're questioning that, or it
I'm
is
just telling you
in
what's in the
this?
resolution. It's in there. In reading the staff summary, says an additional change has been requested.
Correct.
I don't know if that came from you all or from staff. I just know that that's in the staff summary. It's in the resolution, and I wanted to make sure that it was pointed out, so it's not, somebody doesn't just think we slid an extra line in there and said, hey, look what we did. No, I want to make sure that we highlight everything that's in there as a change.
All right, can you explain that change a little bit more? I want to make sure that it does include that we can give, it could affect the millage rate, it could be given back to them in some other form, it could be applied to a project so that it doesn't take as much out of the general fund. I just want to make sure it's
Certainly.
anything over 10% is not being kept for a rainy day again, because that is what that economic stability fund is supposed to be for.
Correct.
So I don't want to be accumulating more. I want to make sure that if it hits that 10%, we're doing something for the people
And we would be.
immediately.
And as it states right now, and if you have a surplus, section C, 1C of it tells you what to do if you have a surplus. That includes cover any budget shortfalls in the current fiscal year or forecasted for the following 5 years, reduce long-term debt, deposit into a fund that stabilizes pension contributions, pay-as-you-go capital projects or expenditures, or to fund a capital asset renewal and replacement fund.
May I ask the attorney a question, Mayor?
Of course, it's your floor right now.
Do you feel as though what was placed in that covers all avenues, or pretty much all avenues of what we could do as a commission? Or do we need to add a clause that a supermajority of the commission can make a decision other than what's in it or whatever? Or do you think it's quite thorough the way it is?
Would you mind restating that?
I'm just wanting to make sure that clause that was the city manager just read encompasses enough that we're not going to be hamstrung sometime trying to do something for the citizens.
And which clause was that?
The one that he just
One
read.
C. 1C does not mention anything about refunding to the citizens. I don't
Well,
read that in there.
refunding can be
Well-
done in numerous ways.
Or
So,
reduce millage.
yeah, reducing the millage is
doesn't
one
say
of the
that.
ways, and
You always have the authority to reduce the millage. That isn't something that would be in a fund balance policy. It's an ordinance, it's a completely separate ordinance. You can reduce the millage down to as low as you want it, including down to zero.
by utilizing that fund.
Actually, by utilizing whatever you want. If you had other revenues that could pay all the bills of the city, you don't have to have a millage rate. There's not a legal requirement to charge a tax. It's a choice.
Okay, and we do not need to stipulate that within this, because somewhere it already states that economic stability can be used for that.
Well, I don't know that it actually states that it can be used for that, because you don't, you can use it for whatever you want.
Well, there's a lot of codes and policies that stipulate things in
There
different
are.
opinions. So, I mean, I'm wondering if we want it clear that it can also be used to lower the millage rate if it goes over the 10%. Just so we safeguard the ability to make sure it goes back to the people through the millage rate. Personally, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So, city attorney, that is kind of what I was talking about.
I think what you include in your policy is up to you, unless there's something that prohibits you from putting it in there. I'm not aware of anything legally. I can't speak to what governs finance. They have a lot of regulations and things that they're the experts on. It's your policy to write now, and it's always your policy to, rewrite in the future by resolution, by majority vote.
If we added that extra, that we could use it to lower the millage rate if it goes over the 10%, would that have to bring this resolution back?
It's your policy to interpret. The list is presented as an exhaustive list. It doesn't say, including the following. You can add it in there if you like.
Would it have to come back if it were added in?
Any change to the policy will need to be adopted by resolution, just like this changes.
Well, to me, it's vitally important that this resolution is passed today. It can be brought back, in my opinion, at another time, in the future to clarify if we want to, but to me, this needs to go through today. Thank you for clarification.
Real quick, I just want to say the statement that I mentioned that was added doesn't change it doesn't inhibit you any. It actually just gives you more options. So what you're asking is what you're asking for was not in there in the first place. This statement doesn't have any impact on that. I just want to clarify that.
Anything else, Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am, if you're ready for a
No,
motion.
not yet. We got a
Okay.
couple other lights on. Commissioner Carousel?
City manager, I know that it's either the state or not the state, whoever, our bond people. They recommend X amount of percentage in order to have a good bond rate, correct? And what is that percentage?
It is all over the place. There's recommendations from the Government Finance Officers Association. It is typically somewhere in the 20% range.
Right, okay. So, the 20% range, though, is that across the board, including the fire, the,
Each of the funds would have their own.
so it's got to be 20, 20, 20, correct?
Each one, yes, each of the funds would have their own.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay, so if we have 25%, the 5% being in economic stability, 20% in disaster relief, which we always have to have, we're essentially 5% over the, I mean, I know that finance kind of put it out there that it's all in one, but is it separated out so we don't get kind of dinged that we have 25% fund balance versus 20?
You won't get dinged for having too much.
Did.
You won't get dinged for having a reasonable amount of too much. We had, I mean, we had almost 100% at one point. There was nothing reasonable about that. Our fund balance, and at
We
the
didn't
time,
have the
we
separate
didn't also
buckets
have a
either.
policy
so
either. It
That was
a
the good old
formal
days,
belief.
wasn't it?
It was.
So, no, you're not going to get dinged. We actually created the original fund balance policy in writing. There was informal ones in place, but the original one was created in 2011.
Right.
The biggest thing that the bond agencies are looking for is that you have a policy and you adhere to it. And then you don't frequently make changes to it based on current economic situations. You set a policy, you follow it.
So the economic uncertainty reserve is really, if I remember correctly, it was something that we brought up because of the county had done, and they had something similar to this, and that's how they got through the crisis.
Yes, ma'am.
So given what we're going through right now, I mean, that would be the place to utilize it from, correct?
Yes, that portion of it is designed for times like these. It's exactly what it says, economic uncertainty. We're in an economic uncertain time. So it's at times like this where you use that fund, and it's at good times that we've been in throughout our history that you build one of these back up. The last bond surveillance call that I was on from our bond agencies, that is one of the things that they comment on in there is, when do you spend it down? And also, when you're not spending it down, are you replenishing what you used in the past so that when something like this current event happens, you're ready to do it again? And people typically forget that second half. We all know, oh, great, we've got this rainy day fund, let's use that because we want to, we need it. It's time, that happens. And in the good times, they forget to replenish it so that when the next bad time comes around, you're not hit on both ends. They look for you to be replenishing these things as well.
And we replenished it last year?
No, actually, we used some of it last year. And this year, I believe we're using a little bit, not a huge amount in either last year or this year. But we had added to it in previous years to start establishing it.
Oh, to establish it, okay, yeah. So it's not that we used it and never put it back, it's that it almost like our self-insurance.
Correct.
You have to keep.
And one of the easiest ways that these get established is by not spending a whole year's budget. So as you all have commented many times during this budget process and previous ones, you budget a certain amount at the end of the year. You've heard me say over and over again, we can't overspend the budget. You can only underspend it or by some act of God come in exactly on budget. But when you have savings at the end of the year, that is typically how these get funded. You don't normally say, all right, we're going to add 0.1 to the millage rate so we can establish one of these. It's usually established through savings throughout the year.
So I'm glad you said that because now I want to know, are we still on task for that 1 million we talked about as the savings that'll go back into fund balance?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanks or Emrich, do you have any questions on this? I have just a couple. If you go to 2A, It says this is for the contingency emergency disaster relief reserve. That's the 20% do not touch. It affects the bond rating if you do account, that whole title. The very last sentence says, these funds, if used, must be replenished. There doesn't say when. It doesn't say how. It just says shall be replenished. Okay, you could sit here and say, okay, we're going to replenish it, but it doesn't say when. And I think something that important that says it shall be replenished should have like a deadline on it.
I certainly understand what you're saying. The downside to putting a deadline on it is you don't know how bad the emergency is going to be. So, for instance, when Hurricane Michael went through up in the Panhandle a couple years ago, those cities still have not recovered. If you put a deadline on it of, say, 2 years, they still can't meet that. They can't even begin to pay their current bills, much less start putting money away back in a fund. This basically the way it's written tells you must do this, but allows you some flexibility because the reason it got spent in the first place was a major disaster. And do you want somebody holding you to putting money away for savings, which means ultimately for something like that, you would have to start taxing people, and they don't even have the ability to put food on their table at that time because it was such a major disaster. So you do want the direction that you must do it so that you don't just blow it off for the next 10 years and not do it. But you do want to still have to do it.
But
Don't you have to set a plan? Don't you have to tell
No.
them a
doesn't
plan?
say
The way this is written does not require a plan. I'm
No.
not going to argue that plans are great. And maybe that's something you want to put in there, that you will have a plan. And the beauty of plans is they're flexible. I would highly discourage you from putting a deadline on there because, again, you don't know. I mean, heck, some of those cities not only got hit by Michael and turned around and got hit the following year.
this year.
Yeah.
You really have to think about why that money was there in the first place and what caused it to go away. To say that you're going to plan, and the plan might need to be updated annually, that would be fine. But to put a hard deadline, I would caution you for doing that because the problem is when you put hard things like that in here, somebody can hold you to it. And you don't want that.
And I appreciate the, what you explained about how long an emergency lasts, but at the same time, it goes back to, yeah, we'll replenish it when we can.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not arguing with you at all. That is, you are the ones that would interpret this. You have that flexibility in it, and who knows what our elected body will be if and when that ever happens. And I'm not going to sit here and say they couldn't do that.
I would be more inclined to look at this and have some verbiage added that says if used must be replenished with a plan that is updated annually at budget time or something. It's something to put the onus on the commission that you have to have a plan. This is what it says. And I don't know what the exact legalese would be, city attorney, that would be something you would have to weigh in on. But that's where I'm leaning, on putting some kind of a plan. Obviously now with this understanding, we can have a deadline, but having a plan to replenish it, updated annually, I think would be very, very important to do. The other thing is the title, Contingency Emergency Disaster Relief Reserve. Can we simplify it? Can we keep it simple? Just call it the emergency fund. Because it shows when you read the rest of A, it explains what that fund is for. It breaks it down and says exactly what that title says.
I don't know if you're looking for an answer for that, Nzari. I got
Yeah.
a little clarification on one of the other ones too.
Okay.
Yes, we can simply, you can call it whatever you want. Realistically, again, it's your policy. And if you wanted to call it just the emergency relief reserve, that would be fine. I would, again, there are certain words that I don't like better than others. I don't think you make contingency the only word that you have in there. People have too generous of a definition of that word. And again, keeping in mind why it's there. You know, and so if you
I
want
just,
to call it
keeping it
emergency or
simple.
disaster, if you want to take off any two words, make sure the first one's one of them.
I personally, if I had the choice, it would just be called the Emergency Reserve Fund.
That's perfectly fine.
Because
I'm not gonna argue with you on that one.
Too often, even this commission that knows exactly which these funds are, we often find ourselves clarifying, are we talking about the 20% one or are we talking about the 10% one? I think it would help us really clarify what fund are we specifically talking about, which then goes into the Budget Stabilization and Economic Uncertainty Reserve Fund. Can we just keep it simple and maybe call it the Stabilization Fund? You know, because
We bring this up as an agenda item on another meeting and get all of these addressed?
well, we've got the resolution in front of us now. Why not address it now? We're the policymakers. We can change it to fit our needs.
The resolution is just to expand to do away with the resolution for the economic stabilization and remove the minimum.
Commissioner Luke has a point. Are they separate resolutions that set up those two?
No, they're all in this one
It's all in
resolution.
one.
It can be addressed. It can be changed.
But why not just do it now? That
I know,
way
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
I thought there were two separate
Yeah, I thought they
resolutions
were
as well.
two,
resolution.
because
I
I
could've
was
sworn there
reading
was.
where all it was doing was rescinding and expanding or removing the minimum.
Well, that was the purpose of it coming here today, but since it's here today,
No, I
let's
get what
look
you're
at
saying.
everything and try and clean it up as best as we can.
And there were two different,
No, it got
It's all
combined in
one resolution.
2018.
It used to be.
In
that's part of
2018.
When we combined these, I think, Mayor's right, I think it was 2018. The idea was to simplify it, which we did. Apparently not
when they got
quite as much as
combined.
we want to
Okay.
today, but it's more simplified than it used to be, but not as simplified as you're trying to get.
Yeah,
Gotta put it
because
back in
we even have, which fund are we talking about? Is it the do not
Yeah,
touch one?
yeah.
That's what we all refer to as do not touch it. That is absolute emergency. It affects our bond rating. And then there's the other one that is, and this is perfect segue into my next question, this stabilization fund, that is for the price of steel going up exponentially, and it affects a project that we're in the middle of. It is for a budget that we have for a project that ran over because of unintended changes that were made, or planned changes that were made that exceed contingency. And if we have a zero, where are we going to get that money to come up with that shortfall?
So I would make the argument that that second group, the second funding, the Budget Stabilization and Economic Uncertainty Reserve, yes, I have to read it too, it's a fun little term, is more so for downturns in the economy than an overrun on a project.
Okay.
I don't believe that it's there because price of steel went up or a
That's-
project was bigger.
What we used it for one time, remember?
We've done a lot of things in our history. I'm stating what I think it's designed for.
Right.
It may not necessarily all be
Right.
in one.
That's
But-
why we got those solid waste things, is because the cost of steel went up and we had the money in this economic uncertainty fund that we
did,
used.
And we replenished it, and we bought those in September because we knew the price of steel was going up.
Correct.
And so, yes, we used it for 3 days.
Well,
And that is, was not arguing was the smart move. It was a very smart move because literally by buying it 3 days earlier, the sale was ending. Probably the best way to put it in generic terms. And because we had the cash flow on hand by having this fund, we were able to do that. And ultimately, we just sped up our purchase that we were going to do 3 days later anyway. But the intent of something like this is really for something like we're in right now. Nobody saw COVID coming, much less the financial impacts that it would have. Back in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, that era, nobody really predicted that we'd have the Great Recession that we had. Some people did, and we all ignored them, and then it happened. But at the end of the day, is to get you through those things so that you don't have to kick somebody while they're down. You don't have to raise taxes to maintain the services that the community needs. You have a savings account to be able to spend some things on.
But if we have a zero,
Then you don't have anything left to do that
we
with.
have nothing. So what happens if I don't know, I'm going to call it COVID-2 happens?
God.
I know, help us. But what happens if we have nothing in that uncertainty fund, that the 10%, up to 10%, and you have nothing in there? Where do you find the money? You have to go into the 20% that affects our bond rating?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that seems a little bit silly, in my opinion.
You can either go into the emergency part, or you cut back on your services or your project, you cut something out.
No
If you
different
don't
than-
have the
than our
money, you
own
can't
personal
spend it.
finances is if you have two savings accounts and the one is dry, nobody wants the bond rating affected. I'm not trying to say this is a good idea.
Okay,
Nobody wants to affect our bond rate, certainly not in a negative impact. But more importantly, we also want to be able to provide the services, especially the more essential of services that our community will need. If that means things are so bad and you have to dip into that 20%, you're probably less concerned at that point of your bond rating than you are of continuing to provide the services the community desperately would need at that time. And you take that risk.
so if I remember correctly, in 2018, when we changed it in 18, part of the reason we came up with this 5 to 10% was it actually helped our bond rating, because then it showed that we weren't dipping into that emergency fund that affected the bond rating, because we had other cash flow available.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I was explaining earlier of you replenish that second fund when things are good. You're not expected to replenish it in a bad economy. You're expected to start replenishing it. So to have zero in there during a bad economy isn't going to hurt you any more than it's going to hurt anybody else, because it's expected that you've used that. If you start having to dip into the 20%, they're going to look at all of the factors in play. There is no one factor that hurts or helps your bond rating. It's multiple factors. The ability to generate revenue, the ability to have savings like this, whether you're doing it when you can do it, and as some of our citizens have pointed out before, are you spending just because you can, or have you made all the cuts? If you're looking at your budget and you're spending that 20% and you're building something for the community that might sound good, but is this really the time to be expanding things? Then yeah, they're going to look at you and say, well, you're not being very fiscally sound, because you're using your reserves to pay for recurring expenditures, and you're not only doing that, but you're building things that are going to be a bigger drain on your budget. So the bond raters look at a variety of things. There is no one thing that all by itself hurts your rating.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Commissioner
Real
Caruso?
quick,
Go ahead.
Mayor, you had asked about the requirement in section 4 of this C, which is on the last page. You'll see that it says the finance department will calculate the reserve amount at the end of each fiscal year. The finance department will examine the recovery of each contingency, emergency, disaster relief reserve after drawdown on an annual basis to determine the need for increases in fees or taxes or expenditure reductions to ensure the funds are replenished within a 2-year period. There's your plan
Gotcha.
with the deadline I told you that I don't like, but you have to look at it every year with a 2-year plan. And again, this is your policy. So if you got into it and we were in one of those really bad situations, you're going to change it.
Commissioner Caruso, did you have a question?
That was it.
Thank you. All right, do we have any public comment on this item? Vice Mayor?
Not on this item.
City Clerk, do we have any virtual? Thank you. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Do you want a consensus on changing the name of,
We could do that if you would like.
and you called it an emergency?
Emergency fund for that 20% do not touch. And then I called it a stabilization fund for that.
You call both of them reserves, not funds.
I'm sorry.
Emergency reserve and emergency and stabilization
Okay.
reserve.
Emergency and disaster?
I actually like economic stabilization.
No, the first one, I'm sorry, not that one.
Okay, so the 20% do not touch, city manager said to have it be emergency reserve.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the 10%, a stabilization reserve.
I like economic stabilization because that's exactly what you do, and you're stabilizing some economic aspect of the city. So I think it's clear as to what it is. And just leave it at that, the economic stabilization reserve.
From a finance perspective, we're fine with either one of those. I just didn't want it called a fund.
Before we do a motion, I have one more question, and I don't know if this is city manager or city attorney. If you're having a policy that says up to 10%, which basically says you can have zero in it, and it's okay, what's the point of having it?
So I will tell you from my side, and the attorney can say if she has a legal perspective on it after that. The point of getting rid of the minimum was because we weren't meeting that. And I have to present you with a budget when it had a minimum in there that met all of your policies, including this one. Which in this year meant that I would have had to find a way to come up with 2% just to add to fund balance. It was about 2.5%. In a time where we don't even have, we already knew we were having bad economic uncertain times. And so that was that, because we discussed this last year during the budget process. I have to follow your policies and do. As a result, I had to present you with a budget that had that 5% in it. And it was Vice Mayor Luke that mentioned a couple times that you all have the authority to go below that. I do not. So I presented you with a budget and you all lowered it because it isn't within your purview. It's not within mine. Now, if you change the minimum down to zero, I can present you with a budget that does go down to the zero in that one. I still have to maintain the 20. Obviously, I'm going to do that with your direction as far as what's the point of having one that has zero in there. I can't say having zero is ever a good idea. Not something that you're going to hear me recommend anytime soon. But having that flexibility so that when we're entering the assumptions phase of our budget, you all were to say to me, yeah, we're not ready to replenish that, or we know, we're in COVID 25, whatever we're in that year, and you guys are saying, don't do it. That would give me the direction and also have a policy that I'm following that allows me to not replenish something.
Because I don't have the fund balance sheets in front of me, if my memory serves me correctly, we're at about a 2% for the general fund, fire, I think maybe like a 3% for solid waste. But is it average about 2% is in this economic stabilization reserve?
I can tell you the general fund one right now is at 2.77%, the budget that you're being presented.
The economic
The
portion.
economic portion
The
is at
economic portion.
2.77.
So maybe instead of having a zero, it should be like a 1.5. So we have a minimum that we have in there for a COVID-2 or a COVID-25.
That is entirely up to you all.
And it's a policy
That's
decision.
purely a policy decision. I will tell you, you're pretty much just changing the problem. You're not getting rid of it, because the problem was 5%. And I could not present you with a budget. You reduce it down to 1.5%, and next year, we're not there. You could run into the exact same thing of, I wish we hadn't had a 1.5% because all we can get to is a 1.
But that's when you cut service, you cut personnel, you cut the budget so that we keep this fund balance because COVID came in the middle of the year.
I'm not arguing that. I'm
Okay.
literally saying that you're just changing the problem. You're not fixing the problem that we had last year.
Gotcha.
You're making it less of an impact, but it's still there. And the reason you asked us to bring this to you was to eliminate the problem, not to minimize it.
Okay. Vice Mayor, you got a
I
question?
was basically the one that pushed this for this resolution to come back, and you stated yes. One of the reasons. The other one was what Commissioner Carazone was talking about, and that's bond-type rating. And we had this resolution in here that we were not abiding to. And, I mean, you can do it if you replace it and stuff like that, but that puts such limitations on you that taking it to that, I don't see any city manager, any commission going into a budget with a zero in that economic stabilization, because that is your go-to fund to help you in situations where we need, to order something early or whatever. So I don't see anybody perceive them coming up with a zero going into a budget, unless it was a desperate, desperate, desperate time. And I would like the ability to do so if you had to, but I don't foresee it happening. But I just want to remove that minimum so we have the flexibility to operate without the appearance of doing wrong. Thank you.
Commissioner Carrison, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm ready, and then I'll talk to it. To get consensus to change the
What I was going to do, I
one
thought you had a
fund
question.
to emergency and disaster reserve. And there's a reason why I say disaster, because there's a declared disaster.
So you want a consensus to change the title of the 20% do not touch
Right.
to emergency disaster reserve.
Emergency and
And-
disaster reserve.
Let's get a consensus on that. Commissioner Carrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich,
Yes.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hanks? And I also am a yes, thank you.
To get consensus on the second economic stability reserve or economic stabilization reserve.
Thank you. I'm a yes.
Of Commissioner Carrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanks, Commissioner Emmerich,
Yes.
and I also am a yes, thank you for that compromise. That title was just ridiculous. Thank you.
I will move to, well, I'll let you do it. You're the one who asked to bring it back. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I appreciate that. That's fine. I move to approve resolution number 2020-R-26 with the two consensus of changing the names of the reserves to emergency and disaster reserve and then economic stabilization reserve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor to approve Resolution 2020-R-26 with a consensus is given, and that was seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
I just want to say thank you. It makes me feel better.
Commissioner Carrison, to speak to the motion?
One of the reasons why I didn't go for putting that minimum is because we were actually here during Hurricane Charlie, during the floods, during the fires, the Carlton Reserve fires, where houses were destroyed. It takes years to get that FEMA money back. My concern is that if we put that minimum there, we could be in trouble. And I can tell you, as being on this dais when those hard decisions of laying off 20-something employees came around. COVID. Just kidding. I'm kidding. That, when those days came around, the economic disaster that we were in, no one could look at it and not be affected by it to say, we don't ever have to put any money in that again. You know what I mean? It's almost like the person who burns their hand on a hot stove, or they know not to put it on the hot stove again. It's kind of similar. If somebody comes in and they go through that disaster, that economic disaster, they're going to be like, next time I am absolutely certainly going to put more money in this time. I think that sometimes we overregulate our future commissions. I think we take out the idea of their own thought process and learning abilities. And I think in this case, we're okay with the way that the verbiage is, so that's it.
Anybody want to speak to the motion? The only thing that I will add is that I hear both sides of this. I understand that your hands get hogtied when you're in a state of an emergency. But at the same time, this resolution surpasses us, and I am afraid that future commission or city managers, when things are good, aren't going to be putting any money in there for when we have a COVID, for when we have a Charlie that comes through, or an Irma. And there won't be any money, and then they have to go into the bond, the do not touch emergency and disaster reserve, and affect our bond rating, whereas if they had some kind of a cushion, small or large, would help them over that hump. And by having a zero, they don't have to. And that concerns me. So I don't know if I can support this without a minimum, even if it's a 1% or a 1.5%. We have to have a minimum in there. And of course, if there's an emergency that comes about, then it gets used, because that's what it's for, even if it goes under the policy, because it can be replenished at better times. But having something in there is imperative to get you through those uncertain times that you cannot even plan for. COVID. So for that reason, I can't support this. I can't. It needs to have a minimum.
Don't we have a minimum on the actual disaster side of things? The 5 to 10% stays the same? It's actually the economic stabilization portion that we opened up to 10%. Isn't there a minimum in the emergency disaster?
20%.
The other one set at 20%.
It's at 20% is the
This
minimum.
one-
So it's the economic stabilization you're saying needs a minimum?
It does.
Okay,
It
just
needs
wanted
a minimum,
to,
even
because
if
when
it's
you're
like a 1,
talking
1.5
about
or 2.
Charlie, that's not economic
Correct.
stabilization.
But
Okay.
if you don't have anything in that fund, what's the point of having the fund? So, seeing no other comments, we'll go ahead and take the vote. And that passed 4-1 with myself dissenting. The reasons I dissented are because we need a minimum. It's our policy that needs to have a minimum to help us through those hard economic times.
Should we take a break before we hit the next
Um,
one?
So before we adjourn, let me get to my little agenda here. I do have public comment. Ms. Connie Bruni and Jeffrey Scott.
Connie Bruni, Northport taxpayer. Since this is a very serious meeting, and I believe and expect that commissioners would only be engaged in business related to this meeting, of course, per my understanding of the term public record, I hereby make a public request for any and all public records utilized or created by the city commissioners during this meeting. Specifically, I noted, and these are just suggestions, my observations, having sat here, a note passed by Commissioner Carasone to City Clerk Taylor approximately prior to 5:35 p.m. Writing and paper shuffling by Ms. Carasone approximately 5:35 p.m. Number 3, Commissioner Hanks referring to a separate side computer there several occasions and on his phone throughout the meeting, 5:46, 5:59, 6:10, 6:12, 6:17, 6:23, 6:26, 6:28, 6:34, 6:37, typing. And number 4, Ms. Carasone dropped paper behind her chair at 6:33 p.m. That is my public request.
Code order.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bruni. Mr. Scott.
Thank you. Jeffrey Scott, Twinkle Avenue homeowner. The city of Northport, and that includes the current administration, is spending taxpayer dollars, doesn't have to. And we, the taxpaying public, are the ones who will have to pay for their senseless spending. What awaits us all is an impoverished city having substandard infrastructure and a growing mass of unemployment, courtesy of a dormant local economy and a tax and spend government bureaucracy. Many of us in Northport believe in a sense of community that has a unifying identity. Instead, we elected a city commission whose favoritism, intimidation towards staff, and repeated failed policies will someday come full circle as we witness our own demise. If this does not get your attention and shake you to your core, what will? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. All righty, so now we will move on to commission communications. We'll start with Commissioner Hanks. Vice Mayor? Commissioner Carrison?
No.
Commissioner Emmerich?
No, ma'am.
The only one I have to, I think would be in interest of everybody is that when I had the COG meeting, which is where we get together with the mayors and administrators of Sarasota County, and kind of share what's going on in their communities, the school board shared that there are approximately 25,000 students in school at that time of the meeting, and that there's another 10,000 that are being taught at home, and approximately 6,000 have elected to be homeschooled countywide. I thought those were pretty interesting numbers, so I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Mayor, did they tell you whether that was an increase from last year or not?
They did not.
I could imagine it's got to be higher.
Yeah, I am, well, virtual in school
Yeah.
absolutely is higher. So I just thought that that was pretty interesting information. Also, based on the CARES Act, and City Manager, you may have to help me out or correct me, the utilities will be reimbursed to the citizens that apply for it after they prove that they paid the utilities. So if, let's say, I owe $1,000 in utilities to Northport Utility Department, I have to pay that, and then they will reimburse me. That way, then it doesn't get used or unspent on something inappropriate. It's supposed to go for the item that it was used for. And the rent reimbursements are being paid directly to the landlords.
Good.
So I thought those were some really good informations that were being shared. This way, it's not getting in the hands of the citizens directly, but it is directly helping them. So just,
I have a question with
Sure.
that. I heard they were like paying the utilities or whatever unless it was city-owned utility. So that they would like pay the electric, but not the water because the water was a department of the, so just curious,
yeah.
did they
and-
say
and-
anything
and
like that?
To be honest with you, I didn't go into that. I hear utilities and I think phone, water, electric. I think of all utilities bundled together. I didn't ask for a breakdown of that. So,
Well, our utilities department might want to look into
Yeah.
that just to make sure.
so I just wanted to share that information. And City Manager, if you feel a memo correcting my recollection is in order, please, by all means, do so. Those are just the notes that I took from that meeting. So at this time, we'll go ahead and do administrative comments. City Clerk? City Attorney? Nothing there. City Manager? All righty. So it is now 6:44, and we are adjourned, and we will be back at 7 o'clock to finish up fire, road and drainage, and solid waste. See you at 7. Good afternoon, everybody. It is now 7:02, and I do call this Fire District meeting to order. Those that are present are Commissioner Hanks, Vice Mayor Luke, myself, Mayor McDowell. We have City Attorney, we have City Manager, and our City Clerk. And I see now Commissioner Emmerich. We also have Chief Garris?
He's here, he's just out in the hallway.
Okay, Chief Garrison is also here. We said the Pledge of Allegiance during the first commission meeting at 5:01. So now we will go ahead and get approval of the agenda, please.
So move.
Motion on the floor to approve the agenda. Go ahead and take the vote. And that passed 4-0 with Commissioner Carrasone absent. Vice Mayor, do we have any public comment for the Fire District meeting?
Not the general, you just have for the specific ordinance.
Thank you. City Clerk, do we have any virtual public comment? Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll move on to ordinance number 2020-32. City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Ordinance number 2020-32, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting a fire rescue district budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020, and ending on September 30, 2021, prescribing the terms, conditions, and provisions with respect to the items of appropriation and their payment, providing for supplemental appropriations and reappropriations, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just like the last meeting, this is the second reading after multiple opportunities for not only the commission, staff, and public to go through these budgets. I'm not going to belabor it anymore. If you have questions, I'd like to just get into those.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Does anybody have any questions for the City Manager or Fire Chief regarding their budget?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none, let's have public comment before we do the motion. Mr. Cooley? He is here.
Greg Cooley, 1274 Overhead Street. First, I'm asking that Commissioners Carrasone and Hanks to recuse themselves for conflict of interest and lack of moral character before the vote takes place on the Fire and Rescue District assessment. You two have demonstrated you no longer represent the best interest of us citizens with your self-serving and personal actions, comments, and votes against we the people's desired direction of this city. Next, my fire and rescue assessment increased by 19% in 2018, then another 13% last year. Now, 1 year later, Chief Titus is wanting nearly 9% more. Don't you realize this commission has already raised my fire and rescue assessments 32% in 2 years? So I'm asking again, why does fire and rescue under Chief Titus's management continue to need more and more money at these high levels of increases? Is he on the take and in the pocket of Mr. Lear too? And why would this commission even consider another 8.8% increase this year under the current economic conditions? And I don't want to hear any more of the spin and lies by any city manager that the proposed fire and rescue increase is only 5%. Based upon my fully paid 2019 tax bill and my 2020 trim notice, my fire and rescue assessment is going to go 8.8%, period. I have the cold hard figures on my side, so enough of your spin and your lies. Thus, I'm asking you, commissioners, again for the third time this year, do not approve another 8.8% fire and rescue increase on top of the previous 2 years' increases of 32%. Don't you think 2 to 3% is more than enough this year? And instead of spending $30,000 on investigations for sexual misconduct investigations by Mr. Lear, that money could have been better spent supporting fire and rescue instead of us taxpayers getting the bill for both. This city should be no different in its spending patterns and spending habits than us citizens who make up the city and pay the taxes. Right now, us citizens are having to live with less money, tighten our belts, and reduce means, and so should the city. The fire and rescue proposed increases are not justified right now during these suffering times. Also, I think the city should garnish Mr. Lear's wages for the total cost of the investigations into his reprehensible actions and transfer that money over into the fire and rescue account to support the budget Chief Titus is asking for, instead of burdening we the people with higher taxes. Why should we the people have to pay for Mr. Lear's actions? Those costs should be on him, not us. Fire Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Just double check, hang on one second, please, hang on one second. Just double checking, do we have any virtual public comment?
No.
Thank you. Go ahead, city manager.
If Mr. Cooley would like to continue to accuse my staff of being on the take, as he just did, much less me, I'd really like to know what kind of evidence he has. It is unacceptable for him to accuse people of crimes with no evidence and just because he's mad. He can sit here and say, I need to be fired all he wants. That's okay. But he has no right to accuse my staff of breaking laws. And that's not acceptable.
Thank you, city manager. Yeah, it's one thing to say something, let's have some evidence to back it up, and I do agree with that, so thank you. All right, so now we will move on to ordinance number 2020-32. If you could make a motion, please, someone?
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-32 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor to approve ordinance number 2020-32, and that was seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
Chief Titus, I appreciate that you brought it in under where it was, we thought it was going to be going, so thank you for your hard work.
Commissioner Carrison? Anybody else? All righty, we'll go ahead and take the vote. And that passed 4-1 with McDowell dissenting. And the reasons I dissented are the exact same as they dissented 2 weeks ago for first reading. I cannot approve a budget, and Chief, you and I have spoke about this. I cannot approve a budget with $315,000 allocated for 6 recruit positions that will not be hired in this fiscal year, just to put the funding aside to be used for future fire station needs. So that's the reason I dissented. Thank you.
May I have the floor?
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
There was a discussion in regards to what the mayor was talking about with Chief after the last meeting, and they are going to be working toward being able to have something. I don't want people to think that there's something going wrong or funny business or something, so that is something that they're going to look at addressing next year, so there is a proper name to that. So, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's next year, and I have this in front of me, so that's why I voted the way that I did. But thank you for that clarity, Vice Mayor. So at this time, does anybody have any commission communications for Fire District meeting?
No, ma'am.
Any administrative reports for Fire District meeting? Chief, easy peasy. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are adjourned at 7:10.
You might have to.
Yeah, I might need to.
Are you in? Reset? Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It is now 7:10, 7:11. I like that, 7:11. It is Thursday, September 17th.
I thought you
and
were joking for a minute.
7:11, free Slurpee Day. I call this Road and Drainage District Governing Meeting to order. Those that are present are Commissioner Hanks, Vice Mayor Luke, myself, Mayor McDowell, Commissioner Carrison, Commissioner Emmerich. We have our city attorney, city manager, city clerk, police chief, staff, and all the citizens left. So at this time, I need to get an approval of the agenda for road and drainage.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor to approve the agenda for road and drainage by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. We'll go ahead and take the vote. And that passed 5-0. Vice Mayor, do we have any public comment?
I don't have any.
Thank you. City Clerk, do we have any virtual public comment? Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll move on to ordinance number 2020-33. City Clerk, could you please read that by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-33, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting a road and drainage district budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending on September 30, 2021, prescribing the terms, conditions, and provisions with respect to the items of appropriation and their payment, providing for supplemental appropriations and reappropriations, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. City Manager, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like with the last one, we had multiple conversations, so I'm going to turn this over to you for questions.
Fantastic. Does
Got
anybody,
shorter.
did,
Brian?
does anybody have any questions for City Manager? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
The same questions that I had out of order in the last meeting. So, or
You'll
in
have to
the
restate
first
them.
meeting.
You'll have to restate them, please.
I will, I
Thank you.
will. It is for Julie and her crew. Coming up Tuesday, there's a project where we will be doing enhancements to the landscaping along 41. And it appears as though the amount to take care of it is going to be more than what they're reimbursing us for. So it looks like there's a difference in the cost. So just making sure the money for that difference is in this budget this year so that you can accomplish what you want to.
Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. Several years ago, between 1995 and 2008, the city of Northport had interlocal agreements with the Florida Department of Transportation, similar to what we have still for streetlights and traffic signals. We had it for mowing, litter removal, and maintenance along 41. This is Mr. Chuck Speak, our operations and maintenance manager, has been approached once again by DOT to see if there's any interest on the city's part to go back into that program. That being said, we currently, our department, because their level of service is much lower, that's why you see the differences, they only provide the 11 cuts of mowing per year. We would actually do it on a 36 cycle per year. And for what we would pay out to a contractor to mow what we have to mow, because we have to mow anything we've improved on 41 right now anyway, in addition to that, because we've put in plantings, it would still actually be cheaper for us if we're part of this program. Now, you really won't see the cost, because although we won't be reciprocated for all of the 100% of our costs, it's in-house. A lot of that is labor costs. So in answer to your question, we do have the money in the budget to cover it. And actually for us, it's a revenue source. So right now, whatever we're doing as far as performing any kind of maintenance along there, mowing and so forth, whether it be in the center or otherwise, because the 11 cuts per month is not enough, that's on us anyway. We get no revenue. So at least with this program, we will have a revenue source. It may not be a 100% exactly what we're spending, but that's going to be primarily labor costs anyways. Is there anything else, Chuck, I might have missed or it didn't?
No, and it's not an upgrade to any landscape. This FDOT is
Okay.
sending, it's not a landscape project.
I thought it was.
No, this is strictly FDOT, an agreement with them for us to maintain US 41, which we are already doing. Okay, they also send a mower down here once a month by the time they get there because we have decided that area needs a higher level of service. Their contractor's really not doing anything. So this is going to offset what we are already spending by the $20-some thousand.
Okay, so that the money's already in the budget that we're doing it currently. So this is a revenue source that will be coming in. So though there's a difference, actually there's a decrease because of that. Is that revenue source showing in this budget? Because this meeting comes up on the 22nd.
That revenue source is not, because we would need your approval to get that agreement in place.
Okay,
So
what is that going to do then to this budget if we approve this budget today? And then we have, next Tuesday, we decide that, yes, we're going to go ahead with that. And so that budget's inaccurate.
If I can say something real quick, one of the things that's also going to happen is in March of 2021, we are going to assume a certain amount of mowing from the contractor. So we'll perform that in-house, provided the commission approves the budget as we've proposed. This is an area we're already contracting out, so we're going to save that money. So if you look at it from the perspective, we're gonna get that 21,000, it won't be exactly enough to cover what we are doing. It can be offset by the money we won't be spending on the contractor for the maintenance of US 41. So I'd have to really look at it in detail to be able to accurately answer your question. Is it gonna be a wash? It's gonna be close. Am I fairly correct on that?
Correct.
Okay, so my question actually goes to what we're doing tonight of proving it. And then Tuesday, we turn around and change something in it. So where does that leave us today?
It will leave us with additional revenue coming in that we didn't anticipate when we created the budget. It won't cause us any major heartache.
Does it have to be changed then before October 1st?
No, ma'am.
Because we made that change before.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So kind of sort of a budget adjustment to the upside?
We don't have to do that. Our revenues, all of our revenues are estimates in the budget. Nothing in there is guaranteed. To have an additional one here, we may have one of the other revenues that doesn't come in as high.
Offset it.
It could offset that. It's the risk that where we have to bring you budget amendments for the most part is on the expenditure side.
Correct.
Because we can't spend the money if it's not budgeted.
Okay.
We're never limited from somebody being nice enough to give us more money.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure because this meeting was now and then we're going to change something on Tuesday potentially. So thank you. And then, of course, the Woodlands bus stop area. If it boils down to needing to put signs or a cross thing or that, is there ample enough money that we can work with the school board to help alleviate that situation over there?
With respect to the signs, we cannot put up any more signs. I've had the, Mr. Speak's traffic control technicians go out there twice. He's reviewed it himself, and we already have exactly the amount of signs, the maximum number of signs we can put up with respect to the school crossing and the bus stop ahead and all that. He's taken a look at that, whether or not we need additional signage. And because of the distance requirements, there's ample sight distance for them to see. We could not justify putting up more signage notifying vehicles that there's an upcoming bus stop. So that's one thing. The school signage as far as the times of when the school zone goes into effect and the blinking light and all that, the flashing signal, that also meets all the state requirements. So therefore, there will not be any more cost on the signs. Next, Mr. Jason Harris, he's the Director of Transportation for the schools. I spoke to him this morning, and I told him that Mr. Traverso, he is our engineering manager. He is also a traffic engineer. He has taken a look at the conditions out there, and he's kind of compared it, if you will, to the Price Boulevard and the two schools, the Heron Creek Middle and the high school. And he looked at it from the perspective of his knowledge, which he's very familiar with, the two warrants that they need to meet. Most likely, it will not meet that. However, he's going to have he's going to do a study himself, like a preliminary type study, and he'll go out and gather some data. He will also look at the traffic crash data in that area next week. But quite honestly, and Mr. Traverso can speak to this, most likely a signal is not going to be warranted at that location. So you're looking at probably a couple $100,000. No, ma'am, we did not plan for that in the budget, but we really don't anticipate that being necessary either. At this time, they've moved the bus stop location. However, in talking to to Jason, Mr. Harris this morning, he feels he really would prefer it would be moved back to Martin Oak Boulevard and Panacea Boulevard. So he asked me for a recommendation in that regard. I told him I would prefer not to do that. I would much rather, as the residents have suggested, to have like a joint meeting with staff, and then we would invite all the HOAs. And also Mr. Harris has agreed to come and try to kind of work something out amongst the residents. So, because I told him, historically, always the Sarasota County School Transportation Department dictates the steps.
Correct.
Yeah, the staff has never given any type of recommendation. They always make those decisions. So he's agreed to do that.
Probably all of the commissioners have received the emails where
Yes, ma'am.
they are complaining in Cedar Grove about the bus stops they have for months.
Yes, ma'am.
And it kind of hit the head this
Right.
past week where they thought they had it resolved, but the HOA presidents were clashing with each other. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have.
On the same subject, I want to commend staff. You guys heard the pleas from the citizens and wanted to get they wanted some
Bike racks.
signage, they wanted the bike racks. You guys went above and beyond. The bike rack was delivered, I think, that same day.
It was.
I think it
Thank
was
you,
the
Mr.
same day.
Speak.
And then also met with the citizens that were concerned about the crosswalks and stuff like that. So I am grateful for being so proactive to protect those little ones. I do have one question on your budget, and I thought Vice Mayor was going to go there with hers. On the 22nd, we have a discussion about the Cedar Grove maintenance of the roads.
Yes, ma'am.
And I presume it's not just the roads, but it's the landscaping also, the mowing, or is it just roads?
Just the roads. Yes, no landscaping.
There's no maintenance of the landscaping?
No, ma'am.
or
It'd be the
anything?
roads and the signage, the traffic control signs. That's it. The stop signs, that type of thing.
And not going too much into detail, because I know this is Tuesday's meeting, but my concern with this budget and Tuesday's discussion, are those roads going to have any serious repairs or signage replaced or anything like that that we need to allocate in this budget?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Chuck Speak, Operations Maintenance Manager. Part of the agreement to take those roads over, they have to bring their signage up to meet MUTCD standards. So the signs will meet all our standards and be accepted by us. We'll go through and do an inspection of those. The road's in good shape. I don't foresee any major repairs or anything needed at this time. And basically, we're going to do roads curb to curb, okay? And then the signage is the only thing outside of those curbs that we'll maintain.
So we're not going to have a Popeye situation anytime soon in Cedar Grove?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you very much. I do not see any other lights on questions. Do we have any public comment for this agenda item?
I don't have any.
Vice Mayor, City Clerk? Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-33 as presented.
A motion on the floor to approve the road and drainage ordinance number 2020-33 is presented. That was made by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, staff.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Good job, guys.
Go ahead and take the vote.
All right. Thank you. I'm done.
And that passed 4-1 with myself dissenting. Again, the same reasons I dissented 2 weeks ago is I cannot approve in-house mowing. We should be growing the private sector jobs instead of these government jobs, and I am afraid that in time, next year, or the year after, we're going to need additional personnel or equipment, and just to keep up with this level of service. So for that is the reasons why I could not approve that. All right, so now, thank you, guys. Do we have any final public comment on this item?
No, ma'am.
Do we have any commission communications, any administrative communications? Seeing none, it is now 7:26 and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Wow. Speedy Gonzalez.
Good evening, everybody. It is September 17th, and it is now 7:27, and I do call the Solid Waste District governing body meeting to order. Those present are Commissioner Emmerich, Commissioner Carrison, myself, Mayor McDowell, Vice Mayor Luke, Commissioner Hanks. We have the city clerk, city attorney, city manager, and Chief Garrison, and a lot of staff here. I did see a citizen come in, thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and get an approval of the agenda. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda as presented. We'll go ahead and call the vote. And that passed 5-0. City Clerk, I'm sorry, do we have any public comment, Vice Mayor or City Clerk, for Solid Waste District meeting?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to ordinance number 2020-34. City Clerk, could you please read that by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-34, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, adopting a solid waste district budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020, and ending September 30, 2021, prescribing the terms, conditions, and provisions with respect to the items of appropriation and their payment, providing for supplemental appropriations and reappropriations, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. I appreciate that. City Manager, your turn.
All right, thank you again, Mayor. Again, we've had multiple meetings on this. We've talked, had multiple questions, and with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to you for questions.
Does anybody have any questions on solid waste budget?
Why is he always last?
S. It's S. All righty, seeing no questions,
Still called the party, though.
seeing that there's no questions, just for the record, do we have any public comment on this specific agenda item?
No, ma'am.
City Clerk, no. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-34 as presented.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor to approve ordinance number 2020-34 as presented, and that was seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Carrasone? No. Anybody want to speak to the motion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote. I keep hitting it. And that passed 5-0. So at this time, do we have any final public comment on the solid waste district meeting? City Clerk or Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none. Any commission communications for the solid waste district? Seeing none. How about any administrative reports? City Manager?
I'd just like to thank everybody. This is an interesting budget year, I'm sure, for all involved. And I think that you all, staff, everybody did a great job of getting us through this process despite all the challenges you were presented with on a variety of levels. And I'm glad we were able to get through this, and hopefully you appreciate the team that we have here as much as I do.
Thank you, City Manager. All righty, guys. No final comments. It's 7:30. We are adjourned. Thank you.